You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody, that music means only one thing. It's time for Vol Views, the program for the premier volatility traders out there. See, flipped it on you a little bit. Of course, this is the show where we break down all things vol. If it's got vol in it, we're going to talk about it probably. And if it's made and designed around vol, probably talk about that a little more. And of course, lots of good stuff in store for you today, including the results of our big crystal ball contest. It was a fun one. It was an interesting one. All sorts of goodness going on here out there. You guys really got the bit in your teeth with this one and ran with it. And I was very happy to see and pleasantly surprised to see just the diverse array of picks that we had coming at us on this from all sorts of people, all sorts of ranges, all sorts of good stuff out there. So we're going to dig into all that in a little bit. Of course, you guys, as always, can join us live every Friday, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, via the old Mixlers, or get the podcast pretty much wherever you desire. A lot of you like iTunes. I don't judge. I think the iTunes podcast app is crap. But hey, what do I know? I've just been doing this for over a decade plus. And one of the early podcast guys, particularly in finance. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, I like Pocket Cast. There's a bunch of other ones out there you could use. Use our mobile app. That also works because I got all the archives. But whichever way you go, make sure you hit us up, questions, comments, insights. Make sure you also follow us on the Twitters and other places so you can find all of our great polls so you too can play along and win fabulous prizes. Speaking of playing along, we got the guy here who has agreed to contribute said fabulous prizes for today's show. None other than the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mr. Meatball, welcome to the Volatility Views program, sir.
Hey, good to be here. Glad to be able to hang out and give away the best written book on options in the last 5 years.
It has been. It's been a couple of weeks now. You remember how this works?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
You got to die. I got to say,
I do.
I don't know if you were following along. It was probably hard for you to follow along because there's a lot of different outlets. People were playing along with us on this show, but we got quite the healthy response, shall we say, for our crystal ball. People, I'm not going to go out there, Mark, and say, that you and I are heroes, shall we say, in the volatility space, that we're courageous to a fault. But yet we go out there week after week and we put ourselves in the fray. You know, we go out there, we dive into the abyss week after week, willing to risk painful error and indeed humiliation week after week in the crystal ball. And we do it again and again just for our listeners' enjoyment. Last time we did an especially Herculean task. We had to go out 2 weeks. 2 weeks with the holiday in the middle, with any God knows thing could happen in the middle there. Who knows?
And we're in like the exact same spot is the funny part.
That is the funny part. Yes, that is all of that.
It's gone nowhere.
Almost.
You might call it the Volabrities. Because we're like
I was going to go for heroes.
Celebrities of volatility.
Heroes, living saints in the volatility space would be another one.
Yep.
But where I was going with this, besides lavishing praise on his listeners, was that you guys. I was surprised how many of you guys were willing to leap into the fray with us. And this is not an easy thing to go 2 weeks. So a lot of you play along in just the general Twitter poll, but a lot of you also going the extra mile, the extra bit of bravery. We had a Herculean task. My team is not a fan with me right now because they had to go find all of your responses, because this show goes out on a whole bunch of different platforms and devices and things. And so finding where everybody sent in their picks from took some time, but I think we got them all. Also, a lot of you trying to play a little fast and loose and trying to maybe wait till the last minute and get them in a lot closer than 2 weeks. So if you came in way after the Twitter stuff expired and everything, we had to say ixnay on that. So we got a lot of late picks too. It's not that hard to pick VIX yesterday for today.
It became a little easier when you saw how kind of the G20 was going to play out.
Yeah, exactly. So all of you who were trying to play like early this week, mid this week, or even yesterday and stuff, a lot of you guys trying to chime in after all that initial stuff closed out. We appreciate your love, but we had to cut it off. So I think, Mr. Meatball, we've collated the most relevant, closest picks that also came in under the wire and have a shot at winning. And also we put in a smattering of friends of the show who decided to play along as well. So we'll get to all of that. We'll get to all of that towards the end of the show, listeners. I don't know, Mr. Meatball, you might have to give away a couple of books. Might be some contenders here. We'll have to see. But first, let's keep on rolling right on into the Volatility Review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Vol Review, the portion of the show where surprise, we actually review indeed some volatility. And Mark, you kind of hit the nail on the head with this last one. We've been off for 2 weeks, listeners. 2 weeks. That's an eternity in the world of volatility. Quite literally, anything could happen, particularly in this time frame we're in right now. We got trade war. We got earnings season still popping off. We got Trump popping off every day with a different tweet. We got commodities moving all over the place. Oil crashing, nat gas exploding, crypto crashing, you name it. Things are popping off all over the place. So it was just a difficult time to pick vol, but also to expect vol, what would happen. I don't think anyone really, not many people, well, some of you did, but not many people predicting almost literally unched when it comes to volatility. I think we are. And we might actually be, Mark, as I'm looking, I think literally unched from the last show. It was like,
we're within a couple of points.
We were like, it was like 19, might have been 19 half, but it was about 1940, and we're 1942 right now. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, sir.
Indeed. I am, especially given everything that happened, right? Think about this, in the last 2 weeks, so the last show was on the 16th. So on the 16th, the S&P closed 27.36.27. Currently, we're 27.37.14. So we're within a point of the close on the Friday when you and I were talking. And in probably unshocking news, we're about 1940. On the 16th, we're the 16th, the S&P closed. S&P closed 1814, but you and I were on, and it was around 1920. And then has since completely managed to do nothing.
I mean, it's had some movement in between. One of the biggest updays in history.
20,
big down days.
22.5, 24, almost 24 intraday.
all that Sturm und Drang signifying nothing at the end of the day, Mr. Meatball. We just it's hard to believe that all that could happen. All that has happened over the past couple of weeks could happen at the holiday, everything else. That's going to usually move some vol, probably to the downside, but you never know. Things get thin, vol can move all over the place, and yet here we are 2 weeks later to the day, and almost literally unched. If you had told me that, if you had me to pick that, I would have been quite surprised. Let's look really quick. I'm not going to give away the audience picks because there's a lot of those here. It looks like I guess I'm still kind of in the hunt, Mr. Meatball, right now. With I'm low. I need vol to get annihilated over the course of the next hour, but I'm still in an 18 handle. I have a chance. You're 15 and a quarter, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe you're.
I'm going to miss on that one.
I was
thinking Thanksgiving, but this G20 piece, a 15 and a quarter may be right for Monday, but it's not going to be right for today. That's my guess.
Unless we get a vol annihilation of historic proportions, in which case that'd be something to talk about here as well on the show. But right now we're talking about what is lighting up here, our collective tapes. The market's kind of in one of those little bit of an shrug the shoulder moods today. We got NASDAQ up slightly, S&P up a little bit more slightly, percentage-wise, and the Dow kind of taking a break. And all of that contributing, like I said, the VIX kind of taking a bit of an slight inhale today. Like I said, right around the 1940 or so level, right about now, up a little bit more than half a handle. So interesting stuff out here. Also worth noting here. Well, before we get to all that, Mark, it's been an interesting, tumultuous, net unched, but in between, very tumultuous couple of weeks. We had epic sell-offs followed by equally, if not more, epic rallies to the upside. A lot of stuff going on. Vol kind of all over the place before literally pinning right here. What's been catching your eye over the past 2 weeks? Count them 2 in volatility, sir.
Yeah, we thought things would slow up into Thanksgiving, but that was actually used an opportunity by shorts to really try and push things because there was no real volume. Then we come in this week, we're up, and then Powell comes in and says, hey, that whole assumption that you had on interest rates over the next, I don't know, year and a half, throw it out the window. We're going to raise once, and then we'll see. But I wouldn't, completely changed kind of the forward value of stocks with his change in interest rate path. So I like stocks too. I think that, G20 could cause something over the weekend and cause some movement Monday. But I'd be, I think with interest rate policy kind of holding here, you're going to see things, maybe run potentially hotter.
Yeah, it seems like Trump maybe browbeating the Fed a little bit into submission. All of a sudden, after holding to that roadmap, they're going back. Maybe we'll take the foot off the gas just a little bit. Kind of hard to argue with that approach. We're not seeing a lot of other major developed economies right now really slamming the brakes. A lot of them are trying to stoke the embers again. So I have us here, with all these market shocks that have resulted from what the Fed has been doing in terms of the velocity of their impact on the market, to now all of a sudden continue that may be a little perilous. So again, people take issue with the executive branch interfering with what the Fed does. Supposed to be this this distant, removed body governed only by financial and fiscal policy. But we all know that's not the truth. When was the last time we saw a Fed chairman hike rates going into his reconfirmation for his next term? The answer is never. So these things don't exist in a vacuum, and the Fed doesn't exist in a vacuum either. They see the shocks, they see the tumult, they see the volatility, they see that the commander-in-chief not too happy with them, and so maybe all of that feeding in. So maybe going to pump the brakes a little bit, or at the very least not be as aggressive with some of their movements. And all that, of course, contributing to earlier this week, one of the biggest up days in market history as a result. So the market liking that, even though right now, again, kind of a little bit unched, but you can't. How many of those days can you have? Not that many, certainly not that many within subsequent succession. Otherwise, we'd be off into all sorts of crazy record territory. Let's look here at VVIX, our old friend VVIX, aka the volatility VIX. That's one of the few things that isn't unched from 2 weeks ago. It's about 94, so it's actually about 12 handles below where it was 2 weeks ago. So we did see a ton of volatility over the course of those 2 weeks. So VVIX was moving now kind of coming in at the other side. Still 94, very elevated. Things are obviously can still pop off at any moment. So it's not quiet by any means. It's not down into like, the mid 70s or so, which I would typically consider to be a little more normal for a VVIX, but it's also not north of 100 either. So a little bit lower there. Let's check in with our old friends, the VIX futures. We're seeing about a point of backwardation right now to the cash, to almost exactly a point actually, from the DEES future to the cash, about exactly a point there, and then it looks like about 0.75 or so from the Jan future, I should say from the cash premium to the Jan future. So a little bit backward out there right now in terms of the cash, but the futures themselves lining up fairly straightforward. Mr. Meatball, anything catching your eye this week, or I should say over the last 2 weeks, in terms of futures term structure? Anything getting wonky or crazy, mullets and Tulums and all that good stuff?
I think there's a lot of interesting things. I think one of the important things to note is that while the VIX was kind of rallying and the market was selling off last week, the vol of VIX options was getting absolutely smoked. They dropped from like 110 down to 90, 93. So think about this, Mark. On the 16th, VVIX was 110, and by the bottom of the market on the 23rd, it had dropped to 99, and then the day before the Fed, it was down to 91.5. So the idea that VVIX was out front of this, and then you could see the VIX futures. So as kind of crazy as things look, there is a the market's is predicting a serious drop in volatility with VIX and VVIX and the VIX futures.
Yeah, hope maybe not in time for your crystal ball pick to take it for this week, but who knows? In a couple of weeks, we shall see. We shall see. We'll get to all that, of course, in a little bit here on the show. Of course, VIX futures, kind of an interesting beast to watch. We also tend to like to watch on occasion, every now and then, the old VIX options. And it hasn't, obviously there were some tumultuous days in there, the big moves there lighting it up. But net, it's actually been, of course, we had the holiday as well. That's always going to squeeze some vol out of the options in terms of vol and volatility, and volume. And that's exactly what we saw, the latter in particular. The ADV down about nearly 30,000 from where we were 2 weeks ago in VIX options land, hovering right around 550,000 right there. And let's go, I don't know, Mr. Meatball likes to go from the bottom to the top. So we'll do that. We'll oblige him here as we run down our top 10 VIX positions, the big VIX holdings, the hot VIX strikes, call it what you will. Juicy VIX option, call them whatever you like. We're going to do a top 10 of them. Starting at the bottom, number 10 here, the DEES 17 puts. Puts still leading the dance out here. We'll get to all that in a little bit. DEES 17 puts coming in at number 10, 135,000 open number there. Number 9, the DEES 17 calls. So do a little bit of risk reversal there if you're so inclined. 142,000 going on there, I should say a conversion reversal. 142,000 there. Number 8, the DEES 47 halves, the fairly optimistic DEES 47 halves. Still 157 of those bad boys open. Number 7, DEES 20s, far more reasonable comparatively. DEES 20s, 172,000 open there. Number 6, our second put on the list going up to this. DEES 16 puts, 175,000 of those bad boys open there. Number 5, the Feb 37 halves, 176,000 open there. Number 4, DEES 37 halves. Remember, there's been some interplay between those 2 months and strikes as of late. Nearly 200,000, just a tick or two below 200,000 contracts open over there. Number Trace, DEES 35s. Again, optimistic. 200,000 of those bad boys open. Number 2, our old friend, the 30 strike, rearing its ugly head again. I did not expect that to be as high as it is, but DEES 30s getting all the love here this week. 233,000 coming in at number 2. Number 1, Mr. Meatball, I know you don't look at the notes, so I'll trust your honor, sir. If you had a guess, just in your heart of hearts, what your spidey sense is telling you, what do you think was the biggest open position in VIX right now? What do you think people are out there trading?
The biggest open position in VIX right now is I'm thinking is around the 20s or the 30s, and let's go out and say the December 30 calls.
That would be good, except it's number 2. I just read those off. So you would have been right if you picked the number 2 instead.
Then let's try something different. Let's go with a put. Let me think. Probably something. It's not the 20. What about the 15 puts?
Are you reading the notes now? Are you actually reading the notes?
No, I'm not reading the notes. I'm looking, but I am looking at a live ball screen.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Okay. Because you horned in on that real quick. All of a sudden. I remember we discussed that put open interest is really rising in VIX itself, and that's a sign that I think the market is really looking for some sort of a back off here. I think you got to think that something like that is priced in, because I think we could come in on Friday or on Monday, and you could see, right now the D's futures around 18.20. You could see that D's future below 18 easily, and if some sort of deal gets done, you could see the VIX down 17, 16 and a half. You could see just a major vol crush here, because VIX is in the only part that's backward is the cash. Other than that, VIX is contango. That's why I was hesitant to really say backward, because is it really backward if it's just the cash? It's not.
It's just they're pricing in some sort of movement between now and Monday, and then they're going to take this thing down. I think you're looking at a VIX sub 17, and then you're going to see the December future get below 18. If anything close to positive happens over the weekend, we would have to walk away from. I mean, the status quo is the status quo, unfortunately, but that's it.
It's funny. When I was looking at the VIX futures just now, I think technically it is backward because the cash is there, but they're actually not, because the futures are not. So the futures pure contango, the cash with the futures, a little bit of a different story. But yeah, it's always an interesting game out there in VIX futures land. We said it many times here on the show. The answer to some, perhaps all, volatility questions can be found lurking somewhere in the VIX futures term chart. Very informative piece of data if you know how to read it. Let's look at the options, because we like to know. By the way, total on the options right now, a little bit shy of 7 million open, about 6.75 million contracts, about 4.75 million on the calls, and right around 2 million open on the puts. So a little light on the OI, again, reflecting the fact that we had a holiday, not a lot going up over that period. In terms of things going up, not a heck of a lot lighting it up out there today as well. It's like a big print did just come in, though, on the D's 24s, 40,000 of those bad boys going up pretty much a few minutes ago for 25 cents. Is that you, Mr. Meatball, coming in, gobbling up D's 24s, expiring on the 5th, by the way, the weeklies in VIX?
Yeah, those are the 5th 24 calls. They bought 40,000 per quarter. That's not me. But at the same time, within 10 minutes, they sold several thousand of the 20s at 116. My entire screen is vol being sold today. I see just today, this is flow today, the big trades, I see a buyer of the DC 1816 put spread. I see a 1x2 call spread buyer, Jan 25 calls being sold, Jan 50 calls being bought for a nickel, the May 65 calls being sold. Think about that. Jan 28 calls being sold, calls. And the D's 20s.
What did they get for the 65 calls?
You get 15 cents in May.
That's a healthy 15 cents to put away till May.
There's no risk there. That's a great risk reward there. Risk manager's not going to be pissed at all.
That's a fun wipeout trade for 15 cents.
So, how can you lose? But yeah, that's I think that the flow the last couple days has been in vol has been bearish. They're selling, if there is any buying, it's all puts. All puts.
Yeah, you're right. It has been a funky kind of a lot of upside call selling. You're right. The we got Jan 28s also lighting it up to the tune of about 20,000 going up today. Looks like they were pretty much hitting the bid pretty close to about 56. They always get funky splits in VIX land. 56.2 cents to be precise. There's about 20,000 going up. 27,000 open on the strike, so it could be giving up the ghost there a little bit. That's always the case with every VIX strike. There's a decent amount open pretty much everywhere. It's like maybe a D's Strangle going up today too, about 6,300 times. D's 1527 going up both for 30 cents. Looks like paper probably selling. Let's see, they were. I don't have. For some reason, I don't have the spread on the calls, but the puts were on the bid. So looks like maybe someone coming in. I don't know, Mr. Meatball. That is indeed a string. In fact, it's funny. Someone writing in with our VIX stuff and saying how they wanted to sell the Strangle. Maybe this is them. D's 1527 Strangle, doing it 6,300 times for collecting a whopping 16 cents here. You like that Strangle? You wanted to buy that Strangle, I believe. I don't know if it was 27, but you wanted to buy a Strangle. Remember before in the VIX?
Yeah.
What do you think about selling this one now?
You know what? If I'd have dumped the calls last week and then dumped held on to the puts here, I'd be in great shape. When you put on a Strangle, unless you're expecting a huge vol pop, you really need to kind of manage the delta around. Now that we're down here in the 90s, if VVIX gets into the 80s, I will, potentially be really interested in doing something.
I don't know about crushing the Strangle though, but yeah, you say if you are going to do these kind of trades, naked, so no iron condor, no other Strangle against it kind of thing to hedge against the worst, most calamitous outcome, which clearly could happen, particularly on the call side in VIX land. Then you have to be pretty deft on the trigger. Should let's say this weekend Trump just decides just to slap his cohort there from China. Then guess what? Those 27 calls may indeed come into play. So be a little deft there on if you are going to indeed go naked on a Strangle, including for size. Also looks like we got people maybe rolling down, maybe some D16 puts, maybe giving up the ghost. We have looks like a lot of D16 puts trading for a variety. We've got almost 20,000 going. It looks like actually as a spread, 1 by 2, 19,500 by about 39,000 earlier this morning. Both going up near the offer. I got to imagine if they're putting on 1 by 2, that they are probably buying the 16. But then again, I think there's a lot of size on the 16, so maybe they are indeed rolling down to the 14 halves. Also, that trade also went up later. 1 by 1, 15,000 times as well for 30 cents. Total of about 47,000 going up on the D16 puts today with an OI. Actually, that was earlier. Yesterday. Yes, this is yesterday. I'm talking about. So it's yesterday paper. So 47,000 of those trading yesterday. OI actually increasing by about 40,000+. So that was all open in paper yesterday. Also, the 14 half puts, we saw about 55,000 of those trade yesterday. So in which case, so maybe they're rolling up in that case because the OI didn't change as much. They're only about 8,000 change in the OI there. So a bit of a funky one there. 14 half, 16. Put spread, maybe a bit of a ratio, but total volume closer to 1 by 1 there. It's like 55,000 by about 45,000 total. So a little bit funkier that one as well. We also saw yesterday the Jan 30s. Looks like paper coming in, and selling a lot of call sales up here as well. About 24,000 of those bad boys again for pretty much, which is similar to what we're seeing today, for about 56 cents. That's their price over there. So interesting stuff, Mr. Meep. I guess we can say puts and call sales, kind of the order of the day. Is that your flavor as well for VIX right now?
Yeah, that is.
Now let's move on to another product that people like to pay attention to once or twice every now and then. I think we've called it, or others have called it on the show, not me. Predictably crappy, crazy town, all sorts of fun stuff. Yes, our old friend VXX, a.k.a. the iPath S&P 500 VIX short-term futures ETN. Say that 5 times fast. Right now it's hovering right around 34.80. Coming into the show is about 35.5. It's come off a little bit since then. At the time of the show, it was about a point handle. Since a lower than 2 weeks ago. So we were obviously at 36.5 2 weeks ago. Right now, we said we're about 34.70. So we've come off another about 3/4 of a point or so since then. As we said, the vol's coming in. People are selling calls, pushing downside trades in VIX land. That's going to wear on VXX obviously as well. Let's see what people have going on out there. We pretty much know what most of the top 10 is. Interestingly enough, number 3 here, Mr. Meatball, is a continuation of a kind of near-term downside trend we've seen be pretty popular in VXX. So far, has yet to really kick in, with the exception of our friend who had, I believe, the put 1 by 2 in VXX. I'll have to go back and check and see how he fared. Those are obviously off the board now. But I'll have to go back, do some digging to see if he actually ended up closing those bad boys out. But he had an opportunity there very briefly to close those out, and then it turned out he did not. We'll see maybe if it worked out in his favor in the end. But not now. We see Dees 30 puts, number 3 here on the VXX list with 71,000 of those bad boys. So breaking up the kind of strip of Jan puts that always dominates the top 10 here in VXX. Number 5 are the Dees 28 puts as well, 58,000 of those, 71,000 of the Dees 30 puts. So a lot of near-term Dees downside. Number 8, Dees 27 puts, 54,000 of those bad. Maybe a little bit of a vertical there because the OI is suspiciously close. Maybe got a 27, 28 vertical would be quite silly in my estimation, though. But hey, I've seen sillier things. Go a little bit wider if you're going to do a vertical, listeners. Don't give yourself a handle. Let's see. Jan 30 puts, number 10. Jan 33 calls, number 9. So the first call on our list are the Jan 33s, and the only call in the top 10. So interesting stuff. Also worth noting here, Mr. Meatball. A few weeks back, actually, our buddy Mr. Schwartz, the Schwartzatron, the Flow Master, highlighting what he termed a $190,000 volatility bet, or I should say downside volatility bet in VXX. Someone was speccing. This was back on the 26th of November, so actually not that long ago, about earlier this week. We saw it was a Dees 31-33 put spread expiring on the 7th, doing it for 19 cents, 10,000 times. He said they spent about $190,000 on that. Right now, he says obviously if about $2 quick spread, so max value $2. If it drops below 31 by December 7th here, and I'll have to pull up quotes. Right now, obviously we're not near there, and we've had a little bit of erosion going on. So I'll have to see how that spread is trading. What are your thoughts on that one, Mr. Meatball? 31-33 December 7th put spread in VXX, sir. I got you muted, Mr. Meatball. You are there?
Yeah, well, it's already started to work a little bit if you look at when he did it and what it's doing now. I think it's clearly a G20 play. And this guy's thinking, if vol collapses the way I just framed earlier, folks, if vol does collapse like that, then VXX is going to go to 30, and my little put spread that I paid nothing for is going to be a great trade. So I think a well-timed trade, and it's a decent bet on G20 amounting to little nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of what he's looking at, right? Because other than that, this thing goes away pretty quick. But it's only 19 cents, so he's not betting the farm. It's not a bad one. He's got 2 handles. He's actually got a little bit of room for it to pop as opposed to these stupid one-handle verticals we've been seeing a lot of lately that are just nonsense in my opinion. But that's a conversation for another. I don't like stupids either. Go figure. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Obviously very closely timed. He didn't even go for full Ds. He went purely on December 7th expiration. So clearly he's looking at this becoming a whole bunch of nothing or maybe something positive this weekend. He's not betting on the old Trump slap in the face because that would certainly not fare well here for that position. Speaking of not faring well, other news we've seen out here in the vol space since we've been off here, Mr. Meatball, before we get to some of your listener queries out here. We saw our old friends, the Rec Shears guys. They've been on the show before. They've had a bunch of tilts at the windmill in the volatility space. Looks like they're calling it quits on the VMIN, which was their VIX kind of downsize fund. This is the one we talked about a while before they launched it. They had a lot of really interesting ways to make these things kind of pay off and have all these different things going on. Since they launched, it came on the show. I think that was probably about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Since then, they've rejiggered. To use technical term, they restructured those products to kind of make them try to line up a little more. It seems like that one didn't really pay off. They closed it for creation of new units as of November 16th, the last day. If you wanted to sling this thing, the last day was the 26th. So unfortunately, as of today, it is too late. We bid a fond adieu to VMIN. Mr. Meatball, I know you've had, mixed feelings, shall we say, on some of these attempts to replicate. When we can see what they're going for. They're trying to make VIX a little bit more palatable, a little bit easier tradable product for people out there who are watching things like VIX Cash and saying, I want to trade their volatility, but I don't like them futures. This is potentially a way for them to do that. We've seen, of course, Whaley and others attempting to do similar things. All of them have come around to prove that it's a very hard thing to do, to try to replicate the VIX itself, VIX Cash index or something like it in some sort of securities accessible type product. It is no mean feat to do that. And it looks like the end of VMIN, Mr. Meatball, is yet another example that this is a difficult windmill to tilt against, sir.
Yeah, it is. And, say what you will about VXX, but at least it does what you expect. If you know what you're thinking, this kind of like weird div thing and all this other stuff just created so much confusion that it became almost impossible for this thing to work out, unfortunately. At some point, someone's going to figure out something, but it's certainly not there yet. I'd love to see an ETF based on, a variance swap. That would get you a lot closer to VIX than any VIX future would. The boys over at what is the Volex called now?
They're now demand derivatives.
The boys over at Demand Derivatives, their realized vol thing might have gotten close. But obviously they're still trying to figure out how to do that. I think we've seen how hard it is to develop a product. I mean, I would go out and say that, Scott, nice guy, Scott Nations, closest to any type of usable product. And basically because he kind of took the basic foundation of VIX and the old VXO and just kind of split it up. He didn't try and reinvent any wheel.
He's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So he brought back VXO in kind of a somewhat tradable form. I know NASDAQ has been chomping at the bit. I guess they're still getting the pushback from the regulators in terms of approving that thing, because I know they wanted to have that thing listed and tradable. Certainly the second to all of this.
Well, they need an underlying.
Yeah, I need an underlying, and I think.
If
NASDAQ
has underlying,
NASDAQ has a futures exchange now, so that should hopefully, that was one of the problems ISE had, is they didn't have a futures exchange, so they couldn't list the underlying even if they wanted to. Now I think they could create a future. NASDAQ can list it. They've expressed to me that they think the interest to do that. It's just a question of getting all that stuff. Where
are they going to clear it? I mean, what are they? And is it going to trade on the PHLX? I mean, where are these going to trade?
NASDAQ can solve the clearing. I think if anyone can, an exchange group with their resources, I think can.
You think NASDAQ's going to self-clear? I don't think so.
I think they could backstop that bad boy. But we shall see. We shall see that. These are questions for, obviously, that have not been solved yet, because they were telling me a while back that they wanted to have this thing already listed. Second, all of these storm clouds started gathering around VIX, particularly around the skew. They were licking their chops, and yet we don't see it yet. So that should tell you something.
They'd be smart. I know NASDAQ does not have a bad relationship with CME. They would be smart to, and this is what I told the SIBO guys, was, I know you want all the money to yourself, but if you really want the thing to take off, get it on CME's clearing thing, and then CME will develop some cross hedge that you can do with S&P, and then S&P futures guys will be all over it.
It's funny because they have done some partnerships in VIX land between CME and SIBO in the past, like some other areas right now that are exhibiting some volatility, like crude, for example. Crude, if you've been watching, has been all over the freaking place, including breaking back into the 40 handle range again for the first time in over a year since the last time we've all had a chance to gather here together on the old VolView show. Right now, that partnership between CME and SIBO, a.k.a. OIV, a.k.a. the VIX of WTI, is right around 54.5, almost 14 handles higher than it was just 2 weeks ago. So vol super juicy out there in WTI land right now. If you've been listening to our TRIFO show, we've been moving steadily into the richer part of the skew curve, which is, of course, where the puts have all the bid of all the juice right now. And so as we keep moving down, this vol is going up. That's kind of how skew works. And that's what we're seeing out here in OIV land right now. Also, another partnership, well, actually, this is not with CME, but on terms of SIBO and the VIX land is GVZ, a.k.a. the Gold VIX. This is over there on the GLD ETF. And this one, or ETP really, and this one is 11.4, all a handle over, over a handle lower than it was 2 weeks ago. So gold vol coming in. Crude vol catching a bid. It's not catching a bid, Mr. Meatball, really quickly. We don't get a chance to talk about it a lot here on the show. But your old friend crypto, just Bitcoin, aka Bitcoin right now, because that leads the dance, just taking on the chin right now again, below off another 225 handles here on the CME Bitcoin future, which is the volume leader out here right now, and it's shy of the 4,000. It broke 4,000 ever so briefly, then rallied back up. Everyone's like, okay, we've tested the lows, now we're back up, and here we are again today, selling off yet again, and below about 39.5 right now. So, Mr. Meatball, I know you were a huge believer in Bitcoin, a huge buyer and holder of all things crypto. So far, sir, not looking so good.
No, it is not. And, at some point, I think these will get bought, but I just don't see. I think, the use case for crypto has been, the original use case was that it's kind of a hedge against the U.S. dollar and all this. And, I don't know, maybe, but, the dollar's rallied really hard. That's been bad on crypto, but I think that it's, there were a lot of comparisons to Tulip Mania, and they may have been extremely right.
We shall see. I was hoping to get, I've been talking to the guys from Acuna who do a lot of the OTC crypto derivatives market making for a lot of this stuff. If you want to trade crypto options, you call them. And they were going to come on the show today to talk about what they're seeing out there, and they're just too busy for them right now. We'll hopefully get them on soon so we can get a little bit more insight into what's going on. There is a Bitcoin options scene. It's primarily OTC, primarily institutional, but get some insight into that and what's going on out there from a vol perspective, what clients are looking for out there right now. I think it'll be kind of interesting, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, let's stay tuned for some of your queries and questions. It is time to open up the Volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the Volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options. or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, everybody, welcome to the old Vol voicemail. This is the portion of the show where you guys hit us up. We also like to hit you guys up. We have the big question coming up in a little bit. How'd you guys fare on the crystal ball? But before we get to that, we also have our regular question of the week this week, which you guys are just devouring. You guys love yourself some Apple. We were talking about all the vol out there in Apple. Mark was talking about VIX Apple earlier this week, I think on the option block, and how juicy that stuff is out there. VIX Apple, of course, the VIX of Apple. Yes, there are single name Apple VIXs, so Apple Volatility. Kind of juicy as you might imagine, even though it may be coming off a little bit. See, where is our old friend AAPL right now? Looks like, is it unched right now? Or maybe is this platform? Let me try a different one just to make sure. I'm getting my live quotes here. Everything seems to be running slow here, so I will check back in on that in a little bit. But we were asking you at the time of this poll, which was earlier this week, it's kind of kicked off. Apple had just crushed 175 to the downside, kind of hovering in that 175 level. And so we asked you guys, interesting times right now. Big sell-off in Apple creates opportunities. We know you love to trade Apple. What, if you gave you 4 choices for trades, which one would you prefer to do? This is Jan expiration we're talking about here. We said, looking ahead to Jan expiration with Apple now below 175, which of these trades would you prefer to make? Sell the Jan 150 put for 165, buy that put for 165, or would you sell or buy the Jan 200 call, which was trade? These are real prices at the time, trading right around $1 for that bad boy. A lot of people coming in say they want to sell the strangle. Pete Yarbro wants to sell it. Other people say, Olive Trader say he doesn't want to do any of those trades. I get you. You don't want to trade Apple, but a lot of you guys are chiming in on what you're thinking. I have the numbers here live in front of you, Mr. Meatball. If you had to guess what our rowdy crew out there is preferring to do in Apple with a Jan expiration, what do you think it is?
Buy call.
By the Jan 200 call. Interesting. It's close. Number 2 with that one. 40% though want to sell that put for $1.65, sir. Premium harvested.
That makes that. I mean, $1.65 doesn't seem worth it to me.
That's below your threshold, eh?
The stock's running around, has been moving more than that on a daily basis. I'd want to get, either really step up and sell the juice, or come up with some sort of spread. I would not be a put seller of Apple.
Yeah, well, we don't have the luxury. We only have 4 choices, so we don't have the luxury of breaking down. I wish we could. Would you like to do perhaps a mitigated risk spread or perhaps a butterfly on this? We kind of do. We kind of go straight to the marrow on these things because here's now my screen's working better. Now Apple 178 right now, off a handle and a half, so still vacillating around that 175 strike right now here. And right now, like I said, our audience preferring to sell that put. 40% of you, 27% saying buy in the call. A bunch of you saying you want to do the risk reversal and stuff writing in. That wasn't one of the choices, but yes, we appreciate the sentiment. 21% said you'd buy the put for $1.65. That's a higher percentage than I thought. And 12% only saying you'd like to sell the call for $1. This one still goes for a little bit, so a lot of you guys have already chimed in. If you have not, head on over to @options. Make your voice is heard. Got a bunch of questions here. Let's see how many we can get to before we get to the biggie. Let's go to this one. ELC. He's kind of asking on a theme we've touched on before. In fact, I believe when Mr. Rhodes was on the show, this was going to be one of his research projects over there at SIBO. He left SIBO before I think he could get it done. But we had a lot of talk. I think it was last year about what is kind of the structural low for volatility out there. And this follow-up question comes from ELC5. He wants to know, quite frankly, what is the lowest vol can get in the SPX? Yeah, we talked about this a while ago. I encourage you, ELC, if you're new to the show, go back about a year ago in the archives. We had a lot of, I don't know how this became, I think because volatility was so anemic. So we were all kind of debating. That question was very popular. How low can VIX go? And VIX Cash was hitting a 9 handle and change. These questions started coming in quite a bit. How low can VIX go? I think we all collectively settled out around a, call it what you will, structural transitional level of volatility in the S&P, somewhere around 5%. Be hard to really get dramatically below that just because of what has to happen in the index. But it also was going to carry out an interesting kind of thought experiment, go down to the old Quotron machine and kind of set all the bids to zero and kind of see what comes up in the VIX calculation as a result. I don't think he ever got a chance to carry that out. Maybe he did, and he told you about it, Mr. Meatball. But is that still where you're landing, somewhere around 5%? Kind of structural vol, sir, in the S&P? And also, I don't know if you ever finished that experiment, but if he did, and if you have any results, feel free to share them, sir.
I don't believe he did, and that sounds about right.
All right, let's see here. We got time for one more before the crystal ball hoopla. This is just a comment, comes in from Nilai. He says, I like Mark's idea for an erosionator in VXX. It would be something interesting to watch, kind of like a smog report or a tide report for VXX. Yeah, that was the thought anyway. We were joking about that on the show, I think about a month ago or so, about how we always talk about the erosion and what's going on. Maybe if we had some sort of live indicator on the options inside, it'd be kind of fun. Here, how much you can expect for erosion. Again, this is never a constant. Things going on. It's a tradable product, but all things being consistent and equal, you can say here's how much it should expect to erode given the current snapshot of the VIX futures term structure and everything else. You guys have something like that, right? Don't you, Mr. Meatball?
Yeah, we do. We've got we have a VXX erosion calculator for our option pick clients that many of them use. So on a given day, we have an exact feel for how much VXX should theoretically give away or gain on a daily basis.
So there you go, Mr. Nilai there. If you want to get it in the meantime until we create something at the Options Insider. We don't have much time right now. So head on over to optionpit.com and they can do it for you over there. All right, meanwhile, it's time to do it. The moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to reveal the winners, or winner, or maybe none. I don't know what to see, of the big VIX Crystal Ball contest.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crystal ball. This is indeed the portion of the program where usually Mr. Meatball and I, sometimes the Rock Lobster, attempt to divine what the volatility gods hold in store for the coming week. Last time we said 2 weeks ago, we had a Herculean challenge, and we opened it up to all of you to play along as well. And of course, the challenge is to get it for right now, for the end of the show here, right around 1 p.m. Central. here. And a lot of you did just that. Let's look at the actual results of the poll first. Let's see. About 36% of you choose. We also had a large broad poll you guys could play along with as well. A lot of you did that as well. 36% of you saying it was going to be in the 16 to 18, about 18.5 range, which is about where I was. I was 18.15, so I always said you were a very wise audience. Looks like so far that's close, but not going to quite make it here. Let's see. 25%, 18.5 to about 21, so getting a little bit more upside, which looks like where we're going to settle out. 22% saying 21 to 23.5, and 17% saying over 23.5. Mr. Meatball, some of my things are freezing up here, so I'm looking at about, just to make sure I don't shortchange anyone, I'm looking at about a little bit shy of 19 handle, 1897.
Yeah,
VIX
right
Cash.
now the live quote is 1878.
Oh, so even okay.
I believe we had an entry at 1880.
So let's go through some of those because, like I said, I was 18.15. Mr. Meatball was 15 and a quarter. So I guess for the show hosts, I'll take that victory because I was closest. I was still within a handle, so that's within our reasonable margin of error. Beyond that, nobody wins. But I'll take a roughly 0.85, or Mr. Meatball's quote is correct, then 0.65 or so. Not bad there as well. But a lot of you guys played, listeners, friends of the show, all of the above. It was no small feat to correlate and collate all of those responses across all the different platforms, the email, the social, the show stuff, the chat, everything, and get it all there. And then also filter out the ones who were trying to maybe game the system a little bit. So I think we have a good snapshot, Mr. Meatball, of who came in under the wire with a somewhat relevant pick that has a chance to win and matched all the other criteria. Let's go through some of those right now. Let's see here. We got R. Ray. He said 1970. Which is not bad. He's within a handle or so, but of course, if it keeps selling off, maybe not. Let me see if I can. I don't know why I'm getting all these slow quotes here, but I'm still looking at 1898 here on my screen. So we're going to go off that unless Mr. Meatball is something crazy. Richie Rich going a little bit downside, 17.1. Doesn't look like that's going to happen there. Alex P, he said 17.5. Doesn't look there as well. We also had a bunch of friends of the show chiming in. I was impressed how many people were brave enough to step up into the fray. This was a challenging one. Bill Ballantyne saying he was going with 16-ish. He was being very...
a good idea there, Bill. You're a day off.
Yeah. He was 1 weekend perhaps away, but unfortunately it doesn't look like... But this kind of just goes to show listeners how hard it is to do this every week, let alone for 2 weeks. Everyone playing. Actually looks like one of the closest of our... show friends here was our buddy Ophir. He put in 1923. That was looking really good. It's still looking pretty good right now. It's about a quarter away or it's a little more. He said vol is too cheap for a number of the names and buying 1 to 2 day straddles is printing money. It's one of the best trading environments for vol in 5 years. So yeah, his pick was pretty good. So he may get the nod for the friends of the show category, shall we say. Let's see. Mr. Top Tick, he picked 1987. So he was looking really good earlier in the show, and I think he might get pride of place for being one of the earliest picks. I think it might have come in on the live show 2 weeks ago. So he did the full 2 weeks, which gives him a little bit extra bonus. But yeah, it looks like 1894 is where I am right now. So that's coming close to but it's within. I'll give it the within. Let's see if we can get a little closer. Within the one handle threshold for now. Neil Wales, 18.1. Let's see. That one's not bad. It's about 0.8 away as well, so he may actually be closer. Con Tango. He was feeling what he was putting down what you were selling, Mr. Meatball. He was saying 15.09. He was below you.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't mind it theoretically, but for the purposes of our conversation here, that's a little bit out there. Your buddy, The Rock. You may have heard of this guy, The Rock Lobster. He played along too. He was not surprisingly kind of near where you were. He said 1591. Also a wee bit pessimistic. Let's see. Another friend of the show, David Lincoln. He's been on before. He was kind of feeling the downside as well. 16.5. Also a bit out there. Let's see here. Jim Carroll, he said 1490. He said, I'll take 1490 because the beers will take a break before they try again. And he really said he just wanted to take the under. Come at me. Well, it looks like, unfortunately, VIX did not come at you. So I don't think you'll be good guess, but I don't think you'll be winning the the epic tome here. Your buddy here, one of the Thompson twins, Matt Thompson, he was 1870. He gets the points for the most precise pick, 18.71056. And he actually looks really good. He might almost be a bullseye. So I might have to take that back. It's not Ophir, maybe. It might be your boy, Mr. Thompson. He might need a book, Mr. Meatball. What do you think?
I'm not giving Mike Thompson a book.
He'd appreciate that, I think.
I think he would.
He might get the point. He's close here. He's about less than two tenths of a handle away. We also got this guy coming in for 1880. CM Capone. I'll have to check. They put this in the list here. This one might have come in late though. I don't know. So that I'll have to check exactly when this one came in. They included it here. I'm not sure. It may have come in beyond our threshold. So we'll put that one. If it came in within the window, that looks like that's a definite bullseye kind of winner. Well, Mr. Meatball, you're the prize.
Pretty impressive.
That one is pretty impressive. You're the prize, Arby. You're the ones giving out the prize. So I'll let you pick who you think of these is actually the winner. And then also, if you want to give out multiples, it's up to you. It's your book. If you want to give out one,
all right,
whatever.
Well, here's what I'll say is if tell me whether Mr. Capone got in on time. Let's see if Al Capone. Interesting that his last name is Capone, and there may be some shady dealings on his guess. Just saying. But if CM Capone was in on time, I mean that is dead on. I'll send him an autographed copy. That's great. I'm not giving one of the Thompson brothers. Those guys could.
No, friends of the show don't qualify, but it would be funny. I'd like to be there to see that.
I should make them buy extra books.
Walk across the street to their office and say, "Here you go.
But,
you win a book."
So, who are we sure of that's underneath that? Remember, we did Price is Right rules for ties. So if two people are equally away, the one under is the winner.
All right. So yeah, then Mr. Top Tick would be out. He was 1987. He's over. Neil Wales 18.1. Looks like it's the we had R. Ray was 1970. He's also over though.
So that's over. That's 19. That's 9/10. What was the one? 1780.
1970. Then let's see. 1810 is the closest without going over.
Oh yeah, 1810 is absolutely the closest. Well, they could go over. That was just the tie break, right?
Yeah. So we have. So it looks like
70 basis points seems to be the winner.
Yeah, 1970
did not win.
1970. Let's see. So that right now, if we just want to just print it like 18.85, want to be that the level?
Let's print it 1880. That's what it is right now.
Okay, 1880. That's fine. 1880. So you got a 0.9 away for but he's over for Mr. R. Ray. We've got, what do we got? We got almost a handle here. So Mr. Top Tick is going to be out because he's above him. And the Wales is 0.7 away. So
that's the winner.
Looks like he's the winner. The other guy would be exactly right. But I think
that would be impressive.
That is
I may send him a book anyway.
He might merit it. I'll have to check. I think it came in earlier this week, though. Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right.
Let's see.
Well, we'll figure that out. So, tell you what, both of you guys shoot me an email or tweet at me at Option Pit, and I'll hook both of these guys up with a book. How about that?
That's very, very charitable, very generous. And I want to thank all of you guys for playing. This was no mean feat. Maybe it gave you a little bit of a better sense of what we deal with week in, week out here. We got to do it again, by the way, Mr. Meatballs. Let's look ahead here. Since you're giving out the book, I will. Even though I won, I will be nice this week and let you pick first for next week. Let me just get the poll here set up so that this is a little bit easier. Only 1 week, so comparatively easy. I got a feeling you're going to be somewhere around where you were last time because you got the whole G7 going on. But what are you feeling for next week, sir?
I'm gonna go 1635.
So I don't like letting you go first because I was feeling shy of my pick last time as well. So taking up all my downside. So I'm going to go I'm going to say lower than where we are now, but maybe not quite, and certainly no 15 handle. Let's say, I was thinking somewhere in the 16s, but that would be no fun. So let's instead go a little bit north. Let's say 17. I'll be charitable. I'll give you some distance. I'm going to say 17.15. So there we go. Got a nice little range there, about 0.8 or so on that. If you guys want to play along, by the way, feel free. I don't know if we have any more prizes on the line, but you get the pride of ownership, the pride of victory. Congratulations to all of you who were very close. It was a tight contest. for all of you out there who joined us and played along in the old crystal ball. All right, unfortunately, that song means we've come to the end of yet another epic, crazy, fun listener participation episode here of Volatility Views. Everybody who wrote in, listeners, friends of the show, everybody who played along, who risked the humiliation of being wrong just for the chance to be right. We appreciate all of you. And you too get to be Vol heroes this week. How about that? Not just Meatball and myself. All of you out there, Vol heroes. Even if you were wildly off, like the Meatball was this week. All right. My pick wasn't too bad. All right, let's go back around the horn, Mr. Meatball. You're talking about how you have your VXX erosionator, other good stuff. What can people expect when they head on over to the option pit these days, sir?
Yeah, if you're local to the Chicago area on Wednesday from 4:30 to 6, myself and Andrew the Lob Robster.
I like that. I meant to change it. The Lob
Rockster. The Rock Lobster. And I are going to be presenting on using volatility and live vol and some of our cool integrated spreadsheets to trade and try and capture edge in the marketplace. I put an email out to register. There's also a link on the blog, or simply email me marketoptionpit.com and I'll get you registered. That's this Wednesday, December 5th, from 4:30 to 6. If you're a vol trader, which if you're listening to the show, you are, you're going to want to be there from 6 to 7. Then cocktail hour, and I think Mr. Longo said he's going to try and sneak over to have cocktails with us as is.
Yeah, listeners, if you're going to be around, take advantage of it. The Rock Lobster does not come out of his hidey hole very often. So to get a chance to meet him in person and chat some vol with him is indeed a rare thing. So head on over there to the SIBO. You got to get on the list, though. SIBO doesn't play around when it comes to security.
No, they don't.
They may boot me out the door as soon as I show up. We'll see. But we'll try it out there. This Wednesday. Check it out, optionpit.com to learn more. By the way, Mr. Meatball, I have confirmation that pick from CM Capone came in on November 23rd, so a week ago, last Friday.
Was it good?
That's not bad. It's beyond when our Twitter poll expired, but it's still fairly impressive to pick it a week out. We do it every week. It's hard.
Yeah.
So I'll give him points for that. I think that's worth doing. A little bit late, but I thought it was like a couple days ago.
Yeah, we'll send them both. Tell you what, we'll send them both books.
I'll give him a week. He played fast and loose, but his name is Capone. What do you expect?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. Sam Capone, and who was the other guy who said Neil Wales, right? Those are the two.
Yeah, Neil and Mr. Capone, please reach out to me so that I can get your info and send you a book.
There we go, listeners. Thanks for everybody who played. It was really fun. You can keep playing this week. Maybe we'll put out another poll for you guys to do just that as well. Always fun to have you guys see what goes into all the vol prognostication that we do. Otherwise, we'll see you again next week, post G7 and all that fun stuff for a little bit more Volatility Views.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.